Yeah, I should win just because you had the Timberwolves in the 8th seed.
Vasilevsky's been playing really well, and the Lightning have a great offense.
Yeah, it was a tremendous shot, and I've come to expect it from LeBron. I would say I wish the best for the Red Sox, but as a Yankees fan, that's really hard for me to do.
The biggest addition to me is Jalen Brunson.
Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, and that's all I have to say. He's still a top 5 quarterback in this league, and there's nothing really anyone can do about it.
Why'd you have to name him? Like, seriously? Like, thanks, man.
Who would have thought 5 years ago that the Clippers and Nets would be facing in the finals?
How is Joe Burrow going to get the ball to them if his butt is already on the ground?
Crazy. And for the fans at home,
Hello, I'm Cy Mendenhall, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL draft rankings. This is our NFL opinions of the week, and I'm Kevin. We'll get right into it. I'm joined by the man that was a late round pick, and may the 4th be with you, Austin.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. I'm glad we're recording on this day, and I maybe have been a late round pick, but it all worked out.
Oh, yes, it did. So, yeah, we're doing rankings 1 through 32. I'll let you say the worst draft.
So the worst draft wasn't all that hard for me. It was pretty clear cut because a lot of teams did, I thought, well with their picks. Other people didn't have all that many picks and still didn't pick all that well. And that's kind of where I went down. This team only had, let me clarify real quick. I believe they have 5 picks. They have 4 picks, and it's the Dolphins at 32. I didn't like any of their 4 picks. A-Chain's okay. He's a good running back, but other than A-Chain, there are other 3 picks I don't necessarily love, and they're my worst draft.
Yeah, they're pretty close to the bottom for me too. I have the Lions here, and it's mostly because of they had those higher picks, and they didn't really hit on them. They did take Hendon Hooker, but there are like some hits, but their top picks and taking swings on them, or they seemed a little bit too high for me, and that's what really put them down the list.
Understandable. Who's your 31?
My 31 is the Browns. They didn't have many picks, but still, I guess I understand taking wide receiver, taking offensive tackle, but it's just I'm not really sure how many of these guys are going to be helping, and we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, my 31 is the 49ers. They didn't have any top 2-round picks, but none of the guys – they took a kicker in the 3rd round, Kevin.
Oh, yeah.
I just didn't like much of what happened with this draft.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of their draft either. It wasn't the best. They're pretty near the bottom too. So I guess it's on to
my 30.
30.
So for 30, I have the Falcons. And it's mainly because of all the good players they could have taken with that 1st round pick. And then I didn't like particularly any of their 2nd round or 3rd round picks. I just think they had a draft that would concern me if I was a fan of them. Yes, Zach Harrison, I don't think is a bad 3rd round pick. But other than that, taking Bijan at 8, plus all the rest not being all that great, it would concern me as a fan of that team.
Yeah, I have them a little bit higher, but my 30 is the Dolphins. As you were saying, they only had 4 picks, but they're all the only 2 needs were their last 2 picks: a tackle and a tight end. Their first were a cornerback. Well, you just traded for a corner and a running back. I thought you were pretty set at running back, so I don't really understand those picks.
Yeah, and those last 2 picks are in the 6th and 7th round.
Yeah, and you're not going to hit much there. So I'll go to my 29. It's the Niners. Yeah, they traded up for a kicker in the top 100. I don't understand that. I think you can find a kicker, and I believe the last kicker that was drafted pretty high was Aguero. Wasn't he a 2nd round pick?
Yeah, and then he played 1 year, got cut, and never played again.
Yeah, so not really sure. There was a kicker drafted in the 1st round, but that was in like the 60s or 70s.
So Janikowski was also taken extremely high, but he became a Hall of Famer probably. So
yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of drafting kickers. I think you can find there are many ways you can find a kicker. But yeah, I'll let you go to your 29.
So my 29 is the Broncos. I just don't like this draft at all. As a team that doesn't have many picks still, like I know they didn't have much to work with, but they take a wide receiver at number 2. That's okay. And then they go linebacker Drew Sanders. I like Drew Sanders as a player, but I don't know how he fits on this scheme and their defense because they have so many good defensive players. I thought they would have gone O-line more, and they don't go O-line until the 7th round.
Yeah, I get that. My well, then we'll go to your 28.
Yeah, my 28 is the Chiefs. Just nothing spectacular about this draft. I thought they could have done better. I thought they could have taken some other guys. Again, we'll see if this all works out, but I feel like they should have taken another wide receiver. They take Rashi White in the 2nd round, but I feel like they could have taken another, considering the players they're losing.
Yeah, that's a good point. My 28 is the Chargers. They took wide receiver a couple of times. Just I'm not really sure about the Quentin Johnson pick. There were other wide receivers on the board. Then you have they took some linebackers. They took a lot of guys from TCU, including Max Duggan. So we'll just have to see. But I'm not really loving it.
Who's your 27?
My 27 is the Falcons. You do get a good player in Bijan, but other picks didn't really work out, and I think they reached on Bijan, so that's why they're up here because they got a good player, but they're not higher because I believe it was a reach.
Understandable. My 27 is the Lions. You already mentioned them. Just bad first picks, and their 2nd pick as well, I think, was a reach. I just don't like any of their picks, really. And then you get into the later round picks, and some of them are okay, which is why I have them higher. A lot of prove yourself guys like the tight end Sam Laporta or Brian Branch, who fell, which is probably their best pick. I also like the Hendon Hooker pick, but I don't think he plays anytime soon because Jared Goff played so well last year.
Yeah, that's a good point. So now, is it my turn or your turn?
It's mine.
Oh.
At 26, Browns. This is another team you've already mentioned. Just not a good draft from a team that struggled last year with high expectations because of Deshaun Watson. I don't think they really helped him out all that much here. They didn't have much to work with, but I like the Dorian Thompson-Robinson pick at the 5th round. But when you pay Deshaun Watson that much money, I don't think that's where he should have gone. Like, he was one of my draft steals, but is he a draft steal when you're paying Deshaun Watson that amount of money? He's not going to get a chance.
Yeah, I know the team you already mentioned that I have at 26 is the Broncos. I agree with it, so I think we can move on. 25, I have New Orleans. They picked Kendre Miller from TCU. Well, I think he's a good running back. I just don't understand it because I know I believe they signed Jamal Williams, and you have Alvin Kamara. But I do like the picks of Brian Breeze and getting some edge rushers. Then they took a quarterback from Fresno State. Maybe they'll see if it works, but just not really a great draft from them. It's okay.
Who's your 25?
My 25 is the Saints.
Oh, that was
26 was the Broncos.
Oh, okay. My 25 is the Bengals. I'm just not going to give them props just for deciding not to take a O-lineman like at all in this draft. They did not take one O-lineman. And when I hear that, I cringe for a little bit. I'm extremely confused. Like, okay, maybe not in the 1st round, but to not take one in the entire draft, Kevin, that is mentally insane.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it works. Maybe they get something back with Jonah Williams. We'll have to see because I know he's still on the market, or they're saying they're receiving calls.
Yeah. And then my 24 is the Chargers, another team you already mentioned. Quentin Johnson, I think, has a very, very, very high ceiling, but I don't know how it works out in the short term. And then all the rest of their picks, I don't think, are all that effective.
Okay. So my 24 is the Colts. They drafted Anthony Richardson. It does fill a need, but I'm just not really sure any of their other picks, if they work out. And you were so high, but They got Kansas State DB, got wide receivers, got offensive tackle. They filled some needs, but I'm just not sure if it works. So, and with their high pick, number 4 overall, I think you should have some hits, and they really didn't have any. That stuck out to me, especially with that number 4. So that's why they're here.
And then who's your 23?
My 23 is the Panthers. They drafted Bryce Young, which I think is a good pick. But they drafted a wide receiver, drafted an edge, guard, defensive back. It's just outside of Bryce Young, which you should get the number 1 pick right and hit a home run. The other picks, I'm not really sure. So that's why they're here. Like you got a good player in Bryce Young, but what about the other players?
That's exactly my thoughts, Kevin. I have him at 23. I said it was impossible for us to agree, but you know what? We'll agree on 23. The Panthers are definitely 23. But because you already mentioned that, I'll move on. My 22 is the Ravens. I like the Zay Flowers pick. Other than that, this draft is suspect. I'm not very high on many of the other draft picks they had. I don't really like taking your first alignment again when you had line troubles in the 6th round. Like, that seems a little, you're waiting a little too long now. Maybe the 6th rounder or 7th rounder worked out, but the chances of that are low.
Yeah, we'll get to when I have the Ravens, so we're going to disagree on that.
Sounds good. We're going to disagree on the Saints. We're not getting to the Saints for a hot minute.
Okay, cool. So my 22 is the Chiefs. You mentioned them. It was all right. I just think it's fine. We'll see if the players work. They filled some needs. Like, they'll have players. It's not how good those players will be. So yeah, not really much I can talk about there. And then it's your mine. Okay, 21. I have the Giants. I think they made some good picks, but I like some of the players, but I'm just not sure about some of the back end. I do like Jalen Hyatt. I know he was high. They got a running back, and we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, my next pick is the Cowboys at 21. I just need to see. I don't trust. I don't know about Mazi Smith. He wasn't even on my board for the top 40. So if they know something I don't, then it's a good pick. My favorite pick of theirs is DeMarvion Overshown, the linebacker of Texas. He could be a star if it all works out. I think he will be very good in the scheme defense that the Cowboys have been running. But I don't know much about Luke Schoonmaker. I'm glad they took a tight end. My next favorite pick, like you mentioned, one of the guys that you thought was a draft steal, Deuce Vaughn. That's a great pick. But I just don't know about Mazi Smith. And then besides Overshown, I don't know if I trust the rest of the guys. It's a fine draft. Like, when we're getting to 21, that's not like a bad draft. It's just not one that I completely trust.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, the Mazi Smith, we'll just have to see. Like, they did it with Tyler Smith. They just didn't really, Tyler Smith. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but it worked out so far, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. But with all these, just disclaimer, like you said, we could be completely wrong. Like, this isn't saying, hey, this draft is horrible. There could be a diamond in the rough that we just don't see. But my number 20 is the Titans. I like the fact that they went QB, but I feel like they waited too long and should have probably got Hendon Hooker if we're going to wait till the 2nd round, who I'm really high on. I like the Colton Dowell pick, a very underrated 7th round wide receiver at a UT Martin. Most people don't look at those type of schools, but he is the career leader in receiving yards there. He is a very underrated prospect, but I'm not high on Tyjae Spears. I'm not high on Jordan Howden. I know you brought up hitting to Teoto, but you said that was basically just because of he went to Alabama. So he was not a no-name on that defense, but there were so many other guys you could mention before him. So we'll have to see how that works out.
Yeah. So now 20. I have Jets. They seem to fill some holes, but just tough. I think they got some good players, but it's just I'm not really sure. And yeah, we're doing rankings though because it's fun to do rankings and see if we were right on some picks and if we're wrong.
Yeah.
That's a part of business. Then 19, I have the Commanders. I feel they got some good players, but it's just they didn't really surprise me. The middle is where I'm like, it's not terrible, but is it great? No. So I kind of view that with once we get past 15, that's probably when I'm like, this is a really good draft.
That's fair. Mine is probably past 12 and above for me. I think it's a great or very, very good draft, at least. My number 19 is the Colts. You mentioned them before. Besides Richardson, I'm not as high on as other people. I got it. You have to prove it. You can't just say, oh, this guy has all the talent in the world if all this other stuff. Well, that doesn't mean it's going to work out. This isn't a slam dunk. And then I like Josh Downs, and I like the tight end Will Mallory, but I just feel like they wasted some of their picks. Again, they had a bad O-line and took 2 and 1 above the 7th round. So I feel like that was a big area of need for them, and they just didn't address it. My number 18 is the Vikings. It's an okay draft. I like the Addison pick. I like that they picked up some cornerbacks, but the people they picked up are just none of them are notable.
All right. Yeah, 18, I believe you just mentioned them a few numbers ago, and that's the Titans. Will Levis will have to see, but they did the same thing with Malik Willis. And I do like Peter Skoronski, but the late round picks we'll have to see. And they did draft Henry Toto, but yeah, we'll just have to see. I just going off Bama. But now 17, I have the Bengals. I like what they did here. They got a good defensive lineman, Miles Murphy, and then they got a corner, got a safety, which they need in case they let some guys go. Then a wide receiver, and then a running back from Illinois, Chase Brown. They can see they did draft a punter, which is okay, but I like some of the picks from where they were trying to go.
That's the one that taking a punter, Kevin, they have an O-line issue, and they decided to go punter. I don't get that.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then was that your 17?
That was my 17. So I went 18 was Titans, 17 Bengals.
Okay, so it's me. My 17 is the Giants. Did you mention them, right?
Yes. Yeah, they were my 21.
Got it. It's a fine draft. I like Deontay Banks, but other than that, Jim Howlett, like you mentioned before, is good, but it's just an iffy draft. I'm not that high or low on any of the guys. And then my 16, you just mentioned them recently, is the Commanders. Emmanuel Forbes, because Emmanuel Mosley is another corner in the NFL. It just for some reason gets in my head. Emmanuel Forbes is a good corner, and I like Ricky Stromberg, but they didn't have any of those slam dunk draft steals or great first round picks that I'm like, wow, this draft was amazing.
Yeah. So now I believe it's my turn. Or no?
Yep.
Okay. 16. I have Cowboys. You mentioned them earlier. It's right on. All right. We'll see what they do. We'll see what they don't. I do like Deuce Vaughn. I hope I'm not wrong with Deuce Vaughn, but I think he'll be a good pickup. And I'm glad they got a running back because I'm not going to trust Tony Pollard yet because of the injury. And maybe Deuce Vaughn can be a nice guy out of the backfield. So we'll just have to see. And then we'll go to 15 is the Bears for me. I love their first few picks. It's just later on, not really a fan. They got offensive tackle. They went with a Florida defensive tackle and a corner. A lot of defensive tackle. They took a running back from Texas, Rashawn Johnson. Not really sure of him. They got a linebacker. It's just these guys fill needs, but how well do they fill the needs is the question.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. My 15 is the Jets. You mentioned them recently. I feel like they would have gone Broderick Jones if the Steelers didn't trade up and steal their guy. I like who they took in the first round, but I just don't know. I mean, we talk about how, Aaron Rodgers could get no help with the Packers, no draft help. Well, that continues here. And then my number 14 is the Bills. I like Dalton Kincaid. It's a good draft. Some of their worser picks, though, kind of brings us down. Like, I'm not very high on Dorian Williams. I think they could have gone with someone better in the third. So that's why I have them at 14.
All right, my 14 is the Patriots. I really like this draft. You got Christian Gonzalez in the first. Then you got a defensive end. You got a linebacker, center, but they did take a kicker pretty high. They took some guards and they tried to add some help. They drafted a kicker and a punter, so a little bit better than 15, but still they're getting carried by their first few picks. And then 13, I have the Bucks. I really like what they did. And it was they got Kalijah Kinsey, then went guard, edge, linebacker, tight end, defensive back, wide receiver, edge. These guys all fill needs, and I do think they will immediately step in and have a good impact.
So that was your 13?
Yes.
My 13 is the Bears, someone that you mentioned a little bit while back. Yeah, I like some of their picks, but I feel like they could have gone better. I like their first round pick, getting a tackle. They needed to do that. This is a good draft. It's just not outstanding. It's one that we'll have to see. I like the Roschon Johnson pick in the 4th round. He's another Texas running back I believe was not getting enough hype.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure about that pick. So,
but 4th round running back, like that's
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
taking
yeah.
running back. So I don't hate that pick at all. And then my 12 is the Packers. According to the Packers, Jaden Reed is a 1st round prospect wide receiver, and really his quarterback was bringing him down. So if they believe in him that much, I'm very high. I love the Luke Musgrave pick. I love the Colby Wooden pick in the 4th round, Tucker Kraft in the 3rd round as well. I'm just not as high on Lucas Van Ness in the 1st round. That's what's really tearing this draft down for me.
okay. All right. So my turn. 12?
Yeah.
Okay, my 12 is Seahawks. I love their first few picks. Devin Witherspoon and Jackson Smith and Jigba. And they got some edge. They took a running back high, though. The guard pick a little bit later. A center, that was the main problem, was their interior O-line. And then they took another running back, Kenny McIntosh, later. They're a team that just drafts a lot of running backs. And I'm like, I feel you have your running back of the future in why can't I think of his name? The rookie running back for Seahawks.
Oh, Kenneth Walker III.
Yeah, I feel like he's their bell cow. So why he's taking a lot of running backs higher when you can go interior O-line, which they did later. But those first 3 picks are really carrying them and having them this high.
And then, did you already say your 11?
No, I did not. So 12 was Seahawks, and my 11 is the Jaguars. I like the pick for an offensive tackle. Then they go tight end. Running back high, though, not sure about that. They filled some needs. They had a lot of picks, but it's just how well do these players work out. Some safety, some wide receiver, some corner, and some guard. But the tight end, we'll have to see.
Yeah, we agree again, Kevin. Jaguars at 11. So we agreed twice now. I'm very impressed. And I agree for many of the reasons you mentioned. My number 10 is the Cardinals. I believe they made some great trades and got a lot of extra picks. Now, did they hit with those picks is really where I'm kind of torn. I like Paris Johnson. He's the best offensive tackle in this draft. But I'm not really high on him taking a quarterback, even though it was a 5th round pick. It's a great draft. We're in great draft territory. Top 10. These are great drafts. I like Michael Wilson. I like Garrett Williams, but it's just some of the bottom picks that are taking it down. And then my number 9 is the Bucks. You mentioned them a little bit earlier. They took my guy. The Cowboys took your guy, the guy you mentioned in the 4th round or later. That will be a great player, but the Bucks took mine, Trey Palmer, the wide receiver out of Nebraska, and I feel like that could be a great trio in 2 or 3 years with Godwin, Evans, and Trey Palmer. They could be great mentors, and I believe that is how you build an offense. If you believe in Kyle Trask, if Kyle Trask is going to be the starter, pick up a underrated wide receiver who played 3 years at LSU but never got a chance because of all the talent that went through there. Went to Nebraska, didn't get enough hype, and now is taken. I really do love this draft. I like the Kalijah Kancey pick in the first round, Cody Monk in the second round with the offensive tackle. There's no picks I hate here, and we're really in the part 9 and above is where I'm like, all these drafts are amazing.
Yeah, that's a good point. So my 10 was, you mentioned them earlier, and I had them higher, and that's the Vikings. I really like their first few picks, and I like the later rounds. They went quarterback. We'll see, but getting some defensive back help, which they need, because they just kept getting rid of guys. I like it, so that's why they're at 10. Then my number 9 is the Bills. I like the Dalton Kincaid pick. And they also got a guy you mentioned in the first round, Osiris Torrance, which they need help with the O-line if they're going to help. They went offensive guard again later and corner and a wide receiver just to see what happens. So I feel a lot of these picks fill a need, and they have some starters that can immediately step in.
Yeah. So my number, did we get past each other? Because normally you lead and I lead, but did I go one ahead on accident?
I'm not sure.
I think I did.
I may have gone.
I think I did. No, I think I did because I mentioned the Jaguars, right? Because we agreed on that, and I think I did
Jaguar.
2 straight on accident. So
no good.
We're now on my number 8. So my number 8 is the Texans. Great draft. Will Anderson is I believe the second best defensive player in this draft, but he could obviously become the best if through a lot of work. So he's a very, very talented player, and I love trading up for 2 and 3 in the first round. And then Tank Dell or Nathaniel Dell from Houston, great wide receiver. Dylan Horton, good edge rusher. This is just through and through a great draft.
That's a good one. I'm a little bit higher, but my 8. Is it my turn or are you?
Yeah, you go and then you do 7.
Okay. My 8 is the LA Rams. They didn't really have a lot of high picks, but they hit on some key picks. First, they go the TCU guard, Steve Avila. That's a great pick. He's a great lineman. They get some edge rushers, get a defensive tackle, and if they can just rush the passer, they'll be productive because everyone's going to be focusing on Aaron Donald. Then they get more linebackers, more tight ends, more just help because that was a team that was devastated by injuries, and they got a quarterback, Stetson Bennett, who I think can fill in if Stafford hurts. I believe Stetson Bennett can be an okay quarterback. He can be a guy that will just help you. He won't do anything great, and he won't do anything terrible. That's why I think he's a good backup quarterback. I don't think he's a guy you can build on the future with. I just think he's a guy you can insert if you need a capable quarterback.
And then your 7?
My 7 is the Packers. I'm a little bit higher. I like the tight end picks. I like that they took a wide receiver early. They did take a quarterback, which could help. They did draft a kicker, though, but they got some running back and some defensive help. I'm a little bit higher on the Lucas Van Ness pick. I like taking a lot of the edge rushers if you can.
Makes sense. My number 7. So you mentioned Rams at 8. My Rams are 7. Or not my Rams are 7, but my pick is Rams at 7. And for a lot of reasons you did. Steve Avila is one of the best players that fell to the second round. They picked up one of the guys I thought was very underrated, Travis Hodges-Tomlinson. They took Jason Taylor the second in the 7th round, who I thought was very underrated. Stetson Bennett, Davis Allen, tight end. This is just a great draft, especially not having a first-round pick. I had Avila going in the first round. They basically did. And then my number 6, I said eventually we would get to this team, the Saints. Brian Breezy is extremely good if he can stay healthy. I'm extremely high on Kendre Miller. I know they have obviously Kamara, and so he'll fall behind him a little bit. But Kamara struggled last year, and having another guy maybe running a 2-man or 2-back system will be easier for him. I like the Jordan Howden pick in the 5th round. This is just a good draft overall. Great.
Okay. So you've said your first 2. Now it's my 2, right?
Yeah, you go 6-5.
Okay. Ravens are my 6. So we have the team that we were low. The other person was lower on higher. I like Zay Flowers. I like Clemson linebacker. They need help on the edge. They need help at corner. And I know they took offensive tackle and guard later, but I really like how this draft worked out, and I think it will help them. So that's my 6. My 5 is Pittsburgh. They really, we talked about the draft up to get the tackle, and I'm struggling. Bradrick Jones. Then they got Joey Porter, a guy I had in the first round. Then Keanu Benton. I've heard good things. Then they go Darnell Washington. This guy can block their running help team. Then they go, maybe they hit on some other picks, but those first 4 picks, I think, are going to be key contributors. And I think that's a really good draft from the Steelers.
Yeah, that we'll get to the Steelers eventually. For me, my 5 is the Patriots. I know they took a punter and a kicker, but those first couple picks, they just slammed out of the park. The fact that they get the best corner in the draft, in my opinion, at 17 with a defensive head coach and a team that needs one is remarkable to me. The Keon White pick in the 2nd round, I love. The Chad Ryland pick in the 4th round, I love. Keishon Butte in the 6th round, I love. It's just a lot of great picks. I understand, again, kicker, punter, like, what are we doing here? But I believe it'll all work out. And my number 4, we get to the Eagles. The Eagles had a great draft, an amazing one. Kevin's probably surprised that I don't have him at 1 because he probably has him in 1 because he's very high on those.
5th.
What?
I plead the 5th.
Okay. I'd just be shocked if you don't have him at 1. Only reason why is, they take it. I think they waste a pick on Tanner McKee in the 6th round. Not that he shouldn't have been drafted. I believe he should have. Just, I don't believe to the Eagles. I don't know how that's going to work out. I like Ringo. Obviously, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, 2 first-round prospects in the 1st round. It's a great draft. It's just not the best for me.
That's fair. My 5 is the. Oh no, I already said my 4. I already said my 5.
Your 4. You're going
My 4 is the Texans. I really like what they did at the beginning. I know they had to give up some capital, but I believe it's worth it. They got C.J. Stroud. They took a center, which is good. They got some more wide receivers. They got an edge. Oh, okay. I thought the Lions got Henry To'oTo'o, but the Texans actually did. So I think that would be great because D'Amico Ryans wants to have some good linebackers. Then they went Notre Dame guard, wide receiver, safety. I think they filled a lot of needs, and they really hit on the beginning of those picks. So that's my 4. My 3 is the Raiders. What a draft at the beginning. They go Tyree Wilson. Then they trade up to get Michael Mayer, who's going to fill that spot they got because they traded away Darren Waller. Then they go Alabama defensive tackle Byron Young. That should help them in a run defense. Then they go a wide receiver in case they need one, but we'll see. Go defensive back, quarterback. Maybe they just want a backup guy. And then safety, linebacker, defensive tackle. They added some key defensive players at the end, or just some positions for guys to fill holes if someone gets injured. But those first 2 picks, Tyree Wilson and Michael Mayer, I just think that's a really good draft. And some really key players into a roster that needed those type of players.
Yeah. My number 3 is the Seahawks, a team you mentioned. Where did you have them?
I had them at 12.
12, okay. I understand some of it, but they had running back issues. They also lost the backup. So
isn't it Dallas something?
No.
That's the guy that went to Notre Dame, I remember. He's on the Eagles now.
I thought it was like Rashawn or Rashad.
Rashawn Penny. I'm pretty sure he
Penny.
went to Notre Dame.
Rashawn Penny. Yep, Rashawn Penny. Yeah, so they're going to get their backup running back, and probably between McIntosh and Charbonnet, I think Charbonnet is a much better second-round running back. But that'll all work out. I love the Jarek Reed pick in the 6th round, and then getting Witherspoon and Smith and Jigba in the 1st round to pair with a playoff team. I just love this draft by Pete Carroll.
Oh, I was wrong. Rashad Penny went to San Diego State. I can't remember. I swore one of their running backs went to Notre Dame.
Yeah, I don't know. And then my number 2, I was 1 and 2 are not just great drafts; they are awe-inspiring for me. But I was so close between these two, and I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But I'm sticking at 2 with the Raiders. They got the best defensive player in the draft, in my opinion. Again, could be wrong, but I am extremely high on Tyree Wilson. And then they go after that and get another great prospect of Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame, after trading away Darren Waller. Trey Tucker in the 3rd round, a wide receiver prospect that I'm really high on. There's just no misses here. These top 2 drafts, I'm assuming that if you paid attention, you know all the rest of them, so you know my 1, but it's really worked out. Who's your 2?
My 2 is the Cardinals. You had them lower. I really like what they did. They got a tackle at 6, Paris Johnson. I like the LSU edge pick. They go Syracuse cornerback, which they need. They need help at wide receiver. They get a guard. Houston QB, I know you were talking about that. I think he's someone that can fill in, gives them depth, because they're really struggling with quarterback depth. Kyler's not going to come back till the end. I know Colt McCoy, I'm pretty sure, is injured. So they're lacking quarterback depth. So I think getting a quarterback in the draft should help them. Then they go linebacker, cornerback, defensive tackle. I think these fill a lot of needs, and I really like what they did. But yeah, I'll go my number 1, which you did call earlier, is the Eagles. It's just incredible. I know you didn't like the trade of them trading up to get Jalen Carter, but this Eagles team, they get Jalen Carter, they get Nolan Smith. They go offensive guard, which they need from Alabama. Then they go defensive back, Illinois. Not really sure about him, but then they get Keely Ringo, who's on my draft steals. Then quarterback, I think they need a backup guy, someone that can just fill in, and then they go defensive tackle. But the picks of Carter, Smith, and Ringo, I know they're all Georgia players, but they're going to help an already stacked defense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against that being 1. They definitely had a great draft. They're my 4. My number 1 is the Steelers. So we both go Pennsylvania for the best draft. This Steelers draft is remarkable. The fact that they could get 2 first-round prospects, and Joey Porter Jr. in the 2nd round and Broderick Jones in the 1st. I love Keanu Benton, and then Darnell Washington, one of your guys, man. If he works out, you have Freiermuth, who's already a top 7 tight end, maybe top 5 in the league, and pair him with Darnell Washington, and then you have an unstoppable force.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I totally understand your where you have guys, Raiders. I wanted to put them a little bit higher, but I was higher on the ones I put above them. So, yeah, pretty good draft rankings. Let us know what you think. It's been a while since we did a full 1 through 32 with the NFL. Let us know if you want more of it. Make sure to reach out to us on Instagram, _podcast20, and then _podcast on Twitter. That's all we got. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.